Let me turn that around on you. What vegetable would you be?
No one's ever asked me that before. I'm going to say a sweet
Terry
potato.
Schiavo. Sweet potato?
Yeah. And not one of those weird Japanese ones that Olivia Munn says is what caused her face to look nice, as opposed to what we all know, which was Botox.
I guess I'd probably be...
I'm probably an upper bluff.
What's that? I hate bok choy. Have I
You don't
talked
like?
about that? I fucking hate bok choy.
Why? Because of the water content?
Too much. Very wet. One of the wettest vegetables.
You got to really not cook it for that long.
I don't cook it at all, quite frankly.
Okay.
But I don't like it. It's too much to eat.
Now, if you want to talk about that, I mean, that's the issue with spinach.
You don't like spinach?
No, I like spinach. But the thing is, you have to buy so much of it because you get so little.
So little.
You get so little.
That is true. I do eat a lot of spinach, though.
I eat a lot of chard. I do.
Yeah, I bet.
What?
I can tell.
Wait, I don't get it.
It don't matter. You eat a lot of chard. I eat a lot of...
What is that? What's wrong with that?
I wake up every day and have 2 wheatgrass shots. And
I love a leafy green, a dark leafy green. It's good for you.
What other dark? Kale?
Yeah. I still eat kale like it's fucking 2009.
Well, it's true because you are wearing a shirt that says Kale versus everybody.
Yeah, it's kale, but in the font for Yale.
Yes. Oh, you also...
As seen on Beyonce
your
in
tote
that one
bag
video.
seems to have a Defend Kale with an AK-47 in the middle of it.
Are you sad we can't do those Defend Joe Biden shirts?
Ladies and gentlemen, I thought I had $1 million idea for us to sell Defend Joe Biden shirts with a gun on them when we go to the convention in August. And now, I guess we could still sell them, but it seems like pointless.
I'm sure we could do something.
We could definitely do something.
R.I.P. Joe Biden?
He's dead.
I mean, might be.
He genuinely might be. Although
No
by the time
idea.
this comes out, I bet there's proof of life.
I don't know.
Yeah, me either. You might be thinking, well, TrueAnon, what about your election coverage? It's coming. Okay, we're in the middle of apparently 4-part series.
Here's the thing. It's none of your business.
It's none of your business. It's my personal life.
It's none of your business how we do things around here.
I just don't understand why you guys have to get involved in our personal lives, which this podcast is a part of. I do this in my life as a person.
Yeah.
I just don't think
it is quite personal to me.
Absolutely. And you know what? More than that, it's our lives.
So
it's our fucking lives.
That's your cue to get out of my business.
It makes me feel anxious when you ask about things. It makes me feel anxious, and you don't want me to feel anxious, do you?
I feel anxious all the time.
Guess what time I went to sleep last night, or fell asleep last night? Just give me a number.
I don't know. 4:30.
Precisely that.
See, look at that.
I fell asleep at 4:30.
Who listens
last
to
night.
women? Liz Franczak.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
This bitch across from me.
I was in bed since 1.
That sucks.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, you got to see someone about that. Been saying that for about what is that? About 5 years now.
Liz, they are going to tell me to take medication. I take that medication.
No, go to a different kind of doctor.
What the fuck does that mean?
Go to like an actual.
Chinese
Don't
doctor?
go to a doctor that is just going to shove pills down your throat. They make them different nowadays.
What? They're like, do like they want me to.
They do a little East meets West, which you have said you liked, and yet not
East meets West.
and yet
Sorry,
not in medicine.
I blew out the mic there.
Yet not in medicine. The most classic place for where East meets West.
That is true. I do not fuck around with Chinese herbs and supplements whatsoever. You think I should?
Well, I think you should not do it yourself.
Why not?
No, because you should go see someone.
Like a witch doctor.
Well, I don't call them that.
Well, I should like acupuncture. You think? I did acupuncture once. I did not like it.
Really? Why?
It made me feel uncomfortable. But
During or after?
during.
Because of the tiny needles?
Yeah, and it was like, yeah.
Or I don't know, because the person might have been weird.
No, it was when they put it in my ears, I didn't like it.
Oh, you don't like the ear.
I didn't like the ear thing, man.
But did you get them in your neck?
I don't remember. It was like 11 years ago.
Okay, so you should go to it now. What about cupping?
What? Oh, that's where like
Just kidding.
you put cups all over you and shit?
Yeah. But that's more
I
like
could do that
that's
myself.
like more like body work.
Can I do
No. But I'm just saying you should go to like an actual like. You said you were going to like sleep doctor stuff.
I should have clarified. My GP that I went to for my yearly checkup gave me a referral to a sleep doctor.
Oh.
But I did not follow up on that because I forgot.
Classic. Yeah, classic.
Yeah. I just don't understand how you're supposed to remember things. But then every
could
night
write
when I
them
go
down.
to bed, I'm like, I know, but then here's what I do. I write something down and then I forgot. I'll never, like, what I do is I write myself notes every day, and then I put those notes on my, like, dresser.
Oh, you do paper notes.
And then it just does not exist to me ever again.
You got to find a new system.
Yeah.
Here's the new system. Notes app. And then every morning you look at your weekly notes app and you look at your to-do list.
I used to do that,
new
and then I
routine.
started forgetting to do that, and so I just gave up on that. I need to do like a memento style, like go to sleep doctor, dermatologist 1:30, like that kind of shit.
Tattooed on you.
Yeah, completely
Just
tattooed
keep
on me.
tattooing
I should.
until you run out.
Because I do already have the fuzzy dice. I got the flames. I'm rockabilly. Anyways, we're back.
We're back. We're here.
We're here.
And we have another episode for you.
We certainly do. And this is we're talking about tribal thumb. You know how we're doing this series on tribal thumb, but have barely mentioned them whatsoever. Let me explain something to you, ladies and gentlemen. You might be like, you don't need to explain everything. It's difficult sometimes to tell a involved political drama without giving a lot of background like one would in a book. This is why, truly, I hate to break it to you, and I know this won't change your opinion, podcasts are some of the worst ways to transmit information in human history.
And yet we still do it.
Yeah, I still do it. And so sometimes you just have to talk a lot before you get to some other stuff you talk about. But we are talking today about tribal thumb.
So let's get into it.
All right, rapid fire. Very fitting for today's episode. What is your favorite weird vegetarian restaurant in the Bay? Matt 1.
What's the fucking one in Santa Cruz that there was the
Cafe Gratitude.
Cafe Gratitude where they bring you the every name of every dish is like, you are grateful.
Yeah.
Or, I am grateful, and you have to
Yeah.
order it that way, and then when they bring it to you, they're like, you are grateful.
I was going to say that because they had a location in both Berkeley and the Mission
Yeah.
for a long time. But then they moved, and it was always the goof troop of like SF. Everyone would always make fun of them because it'd be like, exactly,
Yeah.
like, oh, I have to be grateful. This is so just for like quinoa bowl. Like it was just like so silly. And you'd be like, well, the food was like pretty good. So you felt bad talking shit about it. But then they moved to LA and got like super normalized. Like it's totally like normal restaurant now in LA, Cafe Gratitude.
Well, they also had to
really?
move to
They have,
LA
like,
because of all the allegations.
Well,
and there was a lot of allegations.
and they're not, that's
I think-
a very common tale about people who leave San Francisco for Los Angeles.
Wasn't one of the allegations that they had like a meat freezer at their house?
No, I don't remember that.
Someone
but
told me that. I have no idea if that's true. But I
know
think they
that-
secretly had meat.
I know a lot of the allegations revolved around them making the employees pay a ton of money for taking like new age spiritual courses that were sold.
MLM stuff.
Yeah, like
believe that.
MLM,
No, I think
MLM
it
kind of
was like,
stuff.
yeah, it was like an abusive work environment. It was like really
Yeah.
terrible.
I
It was
believe
very
it.
fun.
And I
They
think
had
that-
to be grateful.
They had to be grateful.
Yeah.
Matt,
I was gonna say Cafe Gratitude, but what's the one? I know.
This is
it's everyone's
ridiculous.
favorite. What's that one on
great.
I never
on
went.
like Irving? The one that's like a weird cult that has like a couple locations in the city.
oh, on Irving?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Irving what?
Irving. It's like by UCSF.
No idea.
Never been there.
You know what was great but is no longer open, and I know it was a favorite of yours, Brace?
Yep.
Love and Hate.
Love and Hate.
Oh yeah.
Love and
Oh,
Hate was
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It's something love.
For me, my favorite was Golden Era, which is still
Yes,
around, but
classic.
the old location of Golden Era, which is a little different because that's Chinese vegetarian cult
Yeah.
that I used to go to. Beyond that, I loved Ananda Fuara. The food was horrible, but it was interesting to see a white boy in a sari. I do find that intriguing. And it was right next to the social workplace I used to work at, so it was very easy to get to. Beyond that, I got to tell you, I hated that one vegetarian Mexican joint in the Mission. We also used to have parties upstairs, and we'd always, like, if a band would play, we'd cause the power to go out in the restaurant. Gracias Madres.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Mama.
I never got the Gracias Madre thing.
But why are we talking about vegetarian restaurants? You don't want to hear that, dear listeners, but maybe you do. We are on part 3 of our series about a group called Tribal Thumb. And one might wonder, well, Brace, This is a 3-part series about Tribal Thumb. How come we spent the last 2 episodes talking about the prison movement and SLA? You are about to find out. We are getting to, and this pun is certainly intended, the meat of the matter.
The fake meat of the matter.
The fake meat of the matter. So where we left off last time is that most members of the SLA, Symbionese Liberation Army, were shot to death and then burned to death, which is always what the cops do for some reason when they see someone. Shot to death and burned to death in a house in Los Angeles.
On live TV.
On live TV. One of the first televised shootout like that. But there are a few members who are out of the house. And one of those was Patty Hearst. And she gets arrested pretty shortly after.
Yeah, her and the Harrises, they're the 3 surviving members of the SLA. They make their way back up to the Bay, and to cut a long story very short, they decamp to rural Pennsylvania for a while to get their heads together, and then they reconstitute the Symbionese Liberation Army, and are much more effective organizers than Donald DeFreeze ever was. And they managed to put together a group of several dozen people, but mostly all they do is issue communiques and statements. Although they do rob a bank and they do some other shit, and they shoot somebody in the course of robbing a bank in Crocker.
They do.
I want to say
they kill an old lady in Crocker. I think.
Yeah. But then they're caught. Eventually, they're caught. Patty Hearst is arrested in San Francisco. When she gets taken to jail, they ask her what her occupation is. She says, "Urban guerrilla." She's a really cool-looking mugshot. And then how short should we cut the story? My God, let's cut it very short. She's, and interrupt me if you want to, but she's basically put on trial for all these crimes that the Symbionese Liberation Army committed. And quickly her defense becomes that she was kidnapped and brainwashed and had some kind of Stockholm Syndrome thing. Her first lawyer is, I think, Terrence Hallinan. Right?
Yes.
Who later becomes the DA of San Francisco, who Kamala Harris unseats after he indicts the chief of police.
And
Look at
not
that timeline.
Not the only DA of San Francisco that intersects with the story either.
No. They drop him for what's his name? Dude from the OJ trial?
F. Lee Bailey.
Famous F. Lee Bailey. And they run with this strategy that she was just a, good little white heiress princess, and she was kidnapped by these terrible people, and they made her do all these terrible things. And she ends up not getting off exactly. She is found guilty for various things, but given such a lenient sentence as to not be a sentence at all. So she is effectively let off for all these crimes she's been caught up in because she's a good little rich white girl. And
this also becomes the kind of popular story about what happened to Patty Hearst. I mean, everyone kind
Totally.
of accepts she was just brainwashed by all of these insane, crazy left-wing people out in Berkeley. She was just a young, pretty rich girl who got swept up in the moment and then got totally sucked into it and hypnotized, held against her will. Horrible things happened to her, and now she's free to go, and everyone bad is dead.
And even the sentence that she's given gets commuted by Jimmy Carter.
Yes.
And then in 2001, Bill Clinton, who has sympathies for little kidnapped girls, fully pardons her.
Yes, yeah. And as the opening of the 18th Brumaire states, all great world historic facts and personages appear, so to speak, twice. And he's speaking about Hegel. He forgot to add the first time as tragedy, the second time as farce. I would go ahead and say that both of these are farcical, but everything you just described there almost repeats itself in a very similar time frame with another urban guerrilla group led by a charismatic ex-con and peopled by a whole lot of crazy white motherfuckers called the Tribal Thumb. And I think if we're going to start with them, we're going to start talking about them, we have to start with the leader of the Tribal Thumb, one Earl Satcher.
Yeah, we got to tell the story of Satcher, and this goes back to basically his time in LA. He grows up there. He's got this kind of interesting childhood. He's known as a karate master, and he loves martial arts. And he gets arrested for an armed robbery in '62 and does some time in prison. There's
up at San Quentin, I think.
Yeah, I think he's sent to San Quentin, but there's not too much to say about that. He gets out in '68, goes back to LA, takes up the name, like many others do, takes up a Swahili name. His is Katamba Chachuma, which allegedly means cloth of iron. And he gets involved with this black militant group now, who's also known as the Black Berets.
They're called now?
They're called Now, all caps, kind of like the US organization.
Yeah.
The relationship between them and the Black Berets is like kind of hard to figure out. They seem to have been the same organization. There's another Black Berets that's like related to the Brown Berets. This isn't them.
Yeah, I think because the Black Panthers, sort of rightfully so, occupy a pretty large space in the history of like black militancy in the 1960s and 1970s. But there were a lot of other sort of more local, sometimes even national groups that sort of competed with them in various ways or worked together with them. I mean, in the case of U.S. United Slaves, they did very much compete with them, mostly at the instigation of COINTELPRO. But yeah, it seems like this group was maybe one of those.
Right. And we don't know much about what Now was up to, but one of the things we know that they were doing was trying to create a program where black and white people would work together to build kind of like food and medicine stores for black people in Long Beach for when riots happened and the police shut down access to roads and stores so that elderly people would have food and medicine. That's like the only project we really know that they worked on. But this guy, Earl Satcher, Katamba Chachuma, was the head of this organization very quickly.
Yeah, and then basically in the summer of 68, the LA branch of the Panthers starts working with this group and basically absorbs them. Mm-hmm. And this group then becomes the Long Beach branch of the LA Black Panther Party chapter. And Earl Satcher becomes the regional director of this organization.
And this is all pretty quickly that this guy
Super
rises
quickly.
up.
Like, basically, he's out in February 68. By September, he's the regional director of the Long Beach branch of the LA Black Panthers.
Gotcha.
And so he then gets arrested in September 68. There's some incident with his sister's ex-boyfriend. He, like, threatens him with a gun at his mother's house.
It's like a domestic quarrel. The guy like is bugging his sister and won't leave, and the guy keeps coming back. So Earl shows him a pistol, and then the guy calls the cops.
And then he gets arrested. He's in jail in Long Beach. In October, there's a rally in Long Beach to free the jailed regional director, Earl Satcher.
Yeah.
In January 69, he takes the stand in a maroon, blue, green, and gold dashiki.
Sick.
And the judge eventually allows him to wear it, although there's like a discrepancy, there's a dispute
initially
about
he's
it.
like,
Too spicy.
Yeah, he gets cleared of assault charges.
Mm-hmm. Well, he represents himself too.
Yeah.
And he gets cleared of assault charges?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two sentences that very rarely go back to back.
Very charismatic guy. He does get charged with, he gets like a weapons charge.
A parole violation, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably not allowed to have a gun if he's out on parole.
Right.
And then he publishes this thing in the Black Panther paper.
Yeah, the only piece of writing we've been able to track down by Earl Satcher when he was in the Black Panther Party is published in the Panthers newspaper, the Black Panther, and it's really long, and so obviously I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's worth looking at and kind of quoting from because the tone of it is so different than your standard kind of Panther rhetoric. It's in this like ultra flowery kind of like poetic mode, and it's like this fable about a young man who like comes into the Panther office and then like they all start like reciting poetry to each other. So this is like just a quote from it, just to get a sense of like the tone of the guy. He says, "Several days ago, a young Panther under my command walked into the office and said to me, 'Kitamba, tonight I told my mother that I was a Panther, and she cried. I asked her, why is it you are crying? And she said to me, at last, my womb has sown the seed of a man. At that moment, I set forth the following poem,' and then like there's all this poetry that follows. So this is not the way most articles in the Black Panther.
and I gotta say something to our listeners here. You might be like, that's so corny. Do you think your mother would ever look at you and say, 'At last, I have sown the seed of a man'?" Just take that into consideration.
Damn.
Yeah, so he gets sent back to jail.
Yeah. So, and then in November of 69, Satcher's in Soledad.
Mm-hmm.
He gets sent to Soledad. There's this whole situation with his lawyer. He's like fearing for his life. He thinks he's about to get killed. I think he sends a letter to his mom or his parents saying like, I'm about to die.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, if people who remember the first episode we put out about this, is there were a lot of seemingly targeted assassinations going on in California prisons against black, but mostly against black radicals.
Yeah,
Right.
and people will remember this January 13th incident at Soledad, where a white guard kills 3 people on the floor, and Earl Satcher is there at that time, and it's often claimed that, and well understood among everyone there, basically, that the inmate Alvin Miller, who's killed and shot, is only killed because he looks allegedly exactly like Earl Satcher.
Gotcha. So case of mistaken identity in the assassination.
Right. And that guy, Alvin Miller, because of his resemblance to Satcher, had already been dealing with so many threats of violence that he was convinced he was going to die because he looked like Earl Satcher, and had sent a letter to his family saying, like, I'm going to die soon. I expect to be killed because of this. And then he won.
Both of
Yeah,
these
then he
men
won.
had sent letters to their mother being like, they're going to kill me soon.
Right. Right. And as we talked about in the first episode, too, there's this like long-standing and very established basically policy in California prisons at the time where the guards like stoke racial violence between white and black inmates. And Satcher is constantly sending letters through his lawyer and to the press talking about how this is happening to him directly. And at Soledad at the time, it's worth mentioning, too, because this is where George Jackson is and all this stuff. Earl Satcher is the ranking Black Panther Party member in Soledad, which is kind of interesting because he really is not remembered very much at all. He's certainly not remembered that way. There's another incident in September 1970 where Soledad guards apparently give a knife to a neo-Nazi inmate who tries to kill him with it. He doesn't kill him. And then there's a lawsuit that he files through the Soledad Brothers Defense Committee with a white inmate. They both sue the state. The white guy's name is Oscar L. Craddock. And Craddock and Satcher in this lawsuit allege that the guards had opened Craddock's cell and told him to go kill Earl Satcher.
Wow.
And he's like, I'm not doing that. I'm calling my lawyer. And he sues the state instead of doing what he was told to do and kill this guy.
Interesting.
So this is the situation.
Yeah. And just to give a really brief kind of example of the uniqueness of Earl Satcher's personality, his kind of like vitalism and charisma, there's this quote that we found. He's clearly like a charming and able organizer in prison. And there's this incident in October 70 where a white inmate who he had recently developed a relationship with is sitting in a cell and just calls out, "All power to the people." And Satcher responds, screaming out loud, "I'm drunk from eating of the locust and wild honey from the suspended garden of the third world."
Damn. That would be so cool to hear a guy scream that.
But I do want to just really quick, if we're going to keep making the comparison, this is kind of the exact opposite of the SLA, right? We were talking about how not charismatic DeFreeze was.
Yeah.
And in this instance, like Satcher is quite famously like very, like, I don't know, charismatic. Like people really do like take to him. Like he seems like a natural leader in ways that DeFreeze did not.
Yeah, he also has these sort of bona fides that DeFreeze kind of lacks, right? Like DeFreeze is sort of introduced to a lot of the stuff in Vacaville and is almost this more artificial figure that's created by these people kind of coming into the prisons.
Right.
Whereas Satcher gets out of prison. I mean, who knows how much stuff he had in contact with in there in the first place. He gets out of prison, it kind of comes into contact with this stuff in LA and then brings it back into prison.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And during this period that he's in Soledad too, there's a number of like hunger strikes and other little actions. He's not there for the big prison strikes that we talked about in the first episode, although later he will, I think at times claim he was. He was not. But he was there for like a number of hunger strikes and apparently was like one of the organizers of these things. Like he's a prison organizer. He's a charismatic guy. And also like we've sort of mentioned it, but like he has his own style and his own way of thinking and talking that's clearly like unique to him. That really emphasizes this kind of like vitalistic, romantic, poetic,
Almost Baroque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's not George Jackson where it's like
No.
really straight to the point, kind
Yeah.
of like clear-headed stuff. It's really kind of like
Out there.
yeah.
And then he gets transferred from Soledad to Folsom right after that huge strike at Folsom ends.
Mm-hmm.
He spends some time there, and then he gets paroled in 72. He goes back to Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where this kind of community starts to form.
So the initial iteration of the tribal thumb. God, I hate that name.
Yeah.
It just makes me laugh every time I hear it. I'm sorry. It's so stupid.
The initial
It's so
iteration.
stupid. Tribal thumb?
I'm so used to hearing it at this point that it's like easy to just say it.
Oh my
And then every now and then you're
God.
like, oh wait, what the fuck? Like,
It sounds
It's a terrible
it sounds
name.
like a jungle zine from like the UK in like 91.
Yeah, it really does. You'd see them at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
But he
Nick Land wrote for a tribal thumb.
he
Yeah, exactly,
heads down
exactly.
to Long Beach after he gets out, which makes sense. He's paroled.
yeah.
And he ends up starting this group there.
Yeah. And something that maybe is worth pointing out is like, okay, so he was a Panther. Obviously, he was a
Yeah.
Panther. He's a ranking Panther in Soledad. By late 1972, the Panthers don't exist anywhere except Oakland. So in 71, Huey Newton begins this thing called the Oakland strategy that's like not worth getting into, but it's a way of protecting the group from its like overextension and vulnerability to
Yeah.
the feds, and also a way of Huey Newton to like reassert control in a kind of like, personal way over the organization. So there's, two sides to it. But what he does is, and what the organization does is they decharter all the Panther chapters around the country and bring key organizers back to Oakland. So when Satcher gets out and goes back to Long Beach, there is no Panthers there for him to lead or to be a part of.
Yeah.
And that's when he starts this new thing.
You've reached the end of the free preview for the episode. It's an extended preview, and I know you like that so much. I love you, and I want to see more of you, but there's only one place I can do that, and that's at www.patreon.com/TrueAnon pod. Right? Thank you. That's www.patreon.com/TrueAnon